Welcome and hello from Alex, with a story from r/entitled Parents, where a woman faces harassment at work from a priest sent by her ex to intimidate her into giving up custody of her daughter. Coming up next is a story from Tassingelmum. My daughter's father sent a priest to harass me. I had no intentions to do a new post, but today absolutely took the cake. To those that don't know, my daughter, 6-year-old, was born from a one-night stand with Jeff. We were never romantically involved. It was a simple one-night stand and we did use contraceptives, but they failed. It happens. A few months ago, Jeff went full psycho and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now we're in the middle of some legal issues. Now for today, I thankfully didn't deal with Jeff. Instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. I am going to be very blunt. I am completely detached from religion. I am not an atheist, just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church. That's the leading religion in my home country. I respect it and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today I was doing some paperwork when I got a call about a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events. So I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite. Shake hands, asking how things were, the usual chit-chat. Then the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child, and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate. His words. I was taken aback and agreed I was a single mother, but that I didn't see how I lived in debauchery and hate. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father and that I am constantly sleeping around with men instead of living a godly life. How he was worried and thought it would be best I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than see me sell myself. Angry was an understatement. I did keep it civil simply because I was at work and I had no intentions of screaming to a religious man at work. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me. She lived a safe and happy life, my personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I know it was Jeff's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. At that I laughed and simply said no. I once again recommended he left, and if he didn't, I would be calling security. He left saying he would try to speak to me again when I am not being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office again, and I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security feed from him walking into my office. It's appalling to hear how someone would go to such lengths to manipulate and intimidate another person, especially using a figure of authority like a priest. Jeff's actions are despicable, trying to coerce the mother of his child into giving up custody under false pretenses. It's clear that this situation is fueled by malice and control rather than genuine concern for the child's well-being. The priest's involvement is equally disturbing, using his position to enforce Jeff's agenda. This situation could have been prevented if Jeff had respected the mother's rights and responsibilities as a parent, rather than resorting to coercion and manipulation. Coming up next is a story from Carrie Darling. Sister gets offered a promotion at work that my mom turned down. Mom is feeling bitter over it. Not sure if this belongs here. If not, I'll repost it to the appropriate subreddit. My 27 female, mom 57 female, and sister 23 female all work the same job on a military base. All three of us are hard workers, but my mom is a very negative Nancy, and everyone at work, including the managers, know this. Doesn't take much to piss her off, but she does her job right and she's pretty quick at it too. In all honesty, it's a wonder she got offered a promotion at all, considering her horrible attitude. When offered the promotion, however, my mom turned it down, claiming she wouldn't be able to deal with all the stress. They accepted no for an answer and moved on. Fast forward to now, several months later, and my sister gets offered the promotion. Not only is my sister a hard worker, but she also has a great attitude. She does her very best to see the silver lining in even the most annoying and inconvenient of situations. She has so many people impressed that everyone wants her in their department. I don't know whether my sister accepted it or not, but she called me about 20 minutes ago and told me that she told our mom about the offer thinking she'd be happy for her, and to warn me that she was instead in a terrible mood over my sister getting offered the promotion and was even threatening to quit her job over it. I guess when my mom turned the offer down, she didn't really mean no. She was instead expecting them to cry and beg and get on their knees and kiss her feet and tell her they'll do anything for her if she'll just take the position. Ugh, that situation sounds like a tangled mess of negativity. Here's the thing, your mom turning down the promotion then getting bitter when your sister gets it. Major bummer. It feels like she built this narrative in her head where they'd chase after her, but then reality hit. Now it's twisted into this whole woe is me situation. Honestly, the best thing your sister could do is be happy for herself, celebrate this chance. It's a recognition of her hard work and positive attitude. As for your mom, well, that's a tougher nut to crack. Maybe with some time, she'll see the light. But in the meantime, your sister shouldn't let this drag her down. This is her moment to shine. Coming up next is a story from LowMistake7491, and if you like the video so far, don't forget to like the video. It only takes a second and helps me out a lot. My girlfriend's entitled mom freaks out over name change. Pretty new to Reddit, but I felt someone might get a laugh out of it. This is shared with my girlfriend's permission. My girlfriend has a very rocky relationship with her mom. This is due to a variety of reasons. But one of the major ones is that her mom cursed her with a horribly misspelled name. Something like Hazel Mari, mom's last name. It's not those exact names, but the same type of vibe. Two classic, beautiful names ruined by her mother's pathological desire to be unique. Her parents weren't together at the time of her birth and she ended up with her mom's last name. This has caused so many problems throughout her life since her dad ended up being her primary parent. And she's told me that she's wanted to change it since she started going to school and having to deal with the problems. The only reason she waited until she was an adult is because her mom wouldn't consent to the name change. Anyway, the paperwork recently went through and my girlfriend is now Hazel Marie, dad's last name. She's over the moon about it and I am so happy for her. The only hiccup has been her mom. We expected her to be upset that her baby girl is deviating from her mommy's wishes, but we didn't expect she'd explode like she did. My girlfriend told her mom the news, and she absolutely blew up. She actually stormed over to our apartment. She lives in the same building as us, it sucks, and banged on our door until my girlfriend reluctantly answered. I advised her not to, but she did it anyway because, and I quote, "It's my mom, let me talk to her." Oh well. My girlfriend's mom barged her way into the apartment and began loudly berating my girlfriend for changing her name. She basically said that my girlfriend threw away the beautiful gift I gave you, and said, "You're my daughter, I have the right to name you." She wasn't even really upset about her taking her dad's last name, but she was really upset about her changing the spellings of her first and middle name to the normal spellings. My girlfriend tried to explain about all the problems her name had caused her over the years, but her mom wouldn't let her speak and just kept yelling over her. Eventually, I, much taller and stronger than my girlfriend's mom, forcibly kicked her out while calling her a bitch and telling her never to come back. My girlfriend and I are now looking at breaking our lease to get away from her. Message from my girlfriend that she wanted me to add: please don't give your kids shitty names. No one thinks it's quirky or cute. You look like an idiot and little Mike and Lee probably resents you for it. Do everyone a favor and just spell your kids' names like they're supposed to be. Take it from someone with a shitty name. It sucks ass to deal with. You're naming a human person, not a doll or puppy. Wow, that poor girlfriend. Her mom sounds like a real piece of work, who misspells perfectly normal names like that. It's like she went out of her way to make life difficult for her daughter. Good on your girlfriend for finally taking control and changing it. Honestly, kicking the mom out might be the best thing that could have happened. Nobody needs that kind of negativity in their life, especially not over something so petty. The message from your girlfriend is spot on too. There's a difference between being unique and just giving your kid a name they'll have to spell out for everyone for the rest of their lives. Maybe the mom will cool down eventually, but in the meantime, your girlfriend deserves some peace and quiet. Maybe a fresh start in a new apartment will do the trick. Coming up next is a story from Schizophrenic Mom. My dad showed up an hour early and then stood me up on our actual lunch time. This might be a small thing, but it still made me so frustrated I, 39 female, actually cried. There is a history of him not respecting my time and prioritizing social events with his crew of varyingly questionable buddies instead of time with me and my brother. Dad and his significant other were coming for coffee and a bite to eat sat at 12:00. Instead of arriving more or less on time like a normal human, he rolled up almost an entire hour before at 11:10. He rang the doorbell once. I was out of earshot in the basement, as was my husband. He was in the shower, and we were not expecting people for 50 damn minutes. Dad did not call or indicate that he had been at our place at all. They proceeded to leave and go shopping. At 12 they rang us up from the shops. Instead of coming back to our house at the actual time of our social call, they tried to call me up to see if we were awake yet. At that exact moment, our plumber, a friendly neighbor, had dropped by to discuss our small bathroom reno. Friendly plumber was in for 15 minutes. I rang up my dad immediately after the friendly plumber left. As I expected, Dad was just letting us know he was a little delayed. Instead, he had turned back. He was 15 minutes into his hour drive back home and didn't want to turn the car around to have coffee, lunch, because he had food in the car and had other things to do that day. It was 12:15 and he was supposed to be at our house 12:00. A catastrophic delay, certainly. Meanwhile, my husband had baked bread and I had prepared the house for guests in the middle of a renovation. I just feel disrespected, discarded, and right at the bottom of his list of priorities. And insulted. Instead of "sorry, we were early, it's you should turn your doorbell volume up and we assumed you were sleeping." Instead of delaying his schedule by 30 minutes so he could drive back and have the coffee, lunch we had prepared, it's "I have other things to do today." Please tell me I am not the crazy one. No, you're definitely not the crazy one here. Your dad's behavior sounds incredibly inconsiderate, showing up an hour early and then ditching you for errands without a heads up. That's a major bummer. Not to mention the whole "you should be awake" comment. Seriously? It's completely understandable that you feel disrespected. You put in the effort to prepare for his visit, and he couldn't even be bothered to stick to the plan or communicate. The whole situation seems like a pattern of him prioritizing other things over spending quality time with you. Maybe talking to him about it directly when things have calmed down could help. Let him know how his actions made you feel. Hopefully, he can apologize and make a real effort to be more respectful of your time in the future. Coming up next is a story from Tanaquil77. Entitled "Mom Invites Herself to My Mini Farm." Too long, didn't read at the end for all you impatient ones. I, 43 female, and my husband, 45 male, live on a rural 4-acre mini farm. We're both professionals and child-free by choice. I am not a big fan of small children. I am never sure how to react to them. I may be a bit on the spectrum, and I find their loudness and restlessness extremely irritating and off-putting. My personal space is very important to me, and I consider my mini farm with all my lovely pets a sanctuary of sorts. I foot all the bills for the animals and do pretty much all of the caretaking. We have horses, goats, chickens, cats, and dogs. While my husband enjoys the occasional romp with his nephews, he has no desire to parent anyone, and he generally just tolerates all of my pets. Anything that distracts him from his primary hobbies of video games and Dungeons and Dragons is off the table. We needed some professional handman help, as our house is quite old and we don't have enough time in the day to get all the little maintenance projects done and maintain our careers. One of my husband's employees volunteered her boyfriend as his side hustle as handyman work. We arranged a date and time for him to come out and quote us some work. She mentioned to my husband that he may need to bring his child along. When my husband mentioned this, I asked him how old the child was and if the child could be expected to behave, since our home is not exactly child-proof. If you touch our walls the wrong way, you can get bad splinters since it's all reclaimed wood. I've done it several times and it sucks bad. My husband had this conversation with his employee, and I was assured the child was old enough to mind himself and all would be well. The night of the quote date, I was informed that my husband's employee would be coming along with her boyfriend to mind the child. I was quite confused, because why wouldn't she just mind the child at their home and let her boyfriend come alone? I asked my husband this and he said she wanted to see the horses. I asked him if he had actually invited her to come over and he said no, she just basically announced she was coming. I told him she was rude and presumptuous, but whatever, let's just get it over with. They show up. There is not one child, there are two. She brought her kid as well, which I am only just finding out about as the child rockets his high-energy ADHD 3-year-old self out of the van and proceeds to start noisily chasing my free-range chickens all over the front driveway. And her boyfriend brings his teenage brother as well as his 5-year-old, who proceeds to crawl all over my barn and rob me of all my free-range chicken eggs as the 3-year-old propels himself around the barnyard screaming his head off, stripping off shoes and socks, bouncing off hay bales, and trying to chase all my goats down. This woman proceeds to pretty much ignore me as she sticks her hands and face all over my two lovely but very sensitive rescue horses. One is an ex-racehorse and the other was from an abusive home she was forcibly removed from, and talking at me the whole time about how awesome her friend's therapy horses are, and pausing only to scream at her out-of-control child that she is alternately ignoring and somewhat attempting to discipline as he climbs my fencing and gets my friendly goats riled up to the point where they want to play headbutt with him, which would be super bad for him. One of my friendliest goats, who is definitely ready for playtime after all the excitement, walks over to the egg-thieving 5-year-old, who was kinda just minding his own business, and proceeds to headbutt him in the chest. Goat was playing, but the kid was tiny, and the kid goes flying. The kid bursts into instant scared tears. He wasn't really hurt, it just scared him, and I am left trying to figure out how to comfort this little stranger that I've only just met 5 minutes ago. Super awkward for me, I am not good at it. The woman that inflicted herself upon me is too busy chasing down and screaming at her demon spawn to be watching both kids, and at this point I am just completely bewildered and ready for this whole ordeal to be fucking over. After the headbutt, I close up the barn and kick them out. The 3-year-old is just running around my yard like a little tornado, screaming his little head off, and the 5-year-old keeps coming up with broken chicken eggs in his pockets from when the goat knocked him over probably. The whole thing was a goddamn 3-ring circus that I did not sign up for, and I am still kinda salty about it even 3 days later. For the love of God, woman, if you're going to impose yourself on others uninvited, at least have the decency to get your kid in line first. Talk about fucking entitled. Also, maybe go see your friend with the therapy horses and leave me and my farm out of it. Also, it's my house too, and I wanted to talk about the work being quoted, not play fucking nanny tour guide. I don't run a fucking petting zoo. Too long, didn't read. Husband's employee's boyfriend runs a handyman service, and we wanted him to quote some work for us. Employee invites herself over for the quoting process because she wants to see my animals. She's not very friendly and also brings her demon spawn child that proceeds to spend 45 minutes to an hour terrorizing my entire barnyard, myself included, when she was never invited over anyway. It's infuriating to hear about people who lack basic respect for others' boundaries and properties. The entitled behavior displayed by the employee and her companions is utterly disrespectful and inconsiderate. Not only did they invite themselves over without proper invitation or consideration for your time, but they also allowed their children to wreak havoc on your property without any sense of responsibility. It's clear that they had no regard for your space or the purpose of your meeting. This situation could have been prevented if the employee had respected your boundaries and discussed bringing her children beforehand, or simply left them at home. It's frustrating to have your time and property disrespected in such a manner, and you have every right to feel upset about it even days later. That wraps up r/entitled parents. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to visit my Spotify channel, link is in the description, so you can listen to the best Reddit story while being outside, and remember to hit that subscribe button.